In this video, we're going to talk about attribution, the way that we give credit to our sources. And if we do attribution correctly, we don't even have to worry about plagiarism, but I will talk about plagiarism just a bit. In this particular case, it's best to go just to what a simple definition of plagiarism is, because this is something we're hoping to avoid. But again, we don't have to really think about plagiarism if we're doing all the other things right. A very basic definition from the CW undergraduate catalog: appropriation, so that means the use and the purposeful use of any other person's work and the unacknowledged incorporation of that work in one's own work offered for credit. It's okay. But I do want to look at, we were asked to look at a particular article, this article on the utility and ubiquity of taboo words. And as we go through that article, what we do is notice that there's some ideas in here. So here's a paragraph, for example: research is reviewed here in an attempt, etc., etc. Some people assume that paraphrasing, when paraphrases, one of the best ways to avoid plagiarism, is that it's just changing a few words. So here I use research is reviewed here. The article reviews research. That may sound to you like your own words. What you're actually doing is just modifying the basic structure, the sentence structure of another person's work. So you're switching the order, you're kind of changing one or two words. You're actually not putting this in your own words, in the sense that a paraphrase is your digestion of a source. It shows how you take the ideas of a source and then put them into your own words, not just how you rearrange the words of someone else's idea and sentence structure. The sentence structure can be as much another person's work as the specific words they use. So it's not just words, it's the structure of those words, how they're conveyed. So for example, I take another look at this and we switch this in a different way. Not only did it get shorter, but it showed that the emphasis of this paraphrase was in a slightly different place as you compare this paraphrase, a really nice resetting your own words and in your own kind of thinking, as opposed to the original, which is a little bit more convoluted. Now, plagiarism, of course, equals bad ethics, and that's one of the things that we deal with at a university, is what are academic ethics. Plagiarism, a violation of academic ethics. One of the things that you'll be asked on your quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing test is, are these proper ethics or are these cases of plagiarism? Now, this is a case where as long as I quote material accurately, can I use the quoted material any way I want to? We can ask that in a very strictly rule situation, maybe. But as far as we ask in an ethical situation, the answer is no, because sometimes you can misuse information. You can make an author, by just extracting a quote, say something counter to their particular intentions or ideas. Question 2, do I have to include a citation for well-known facts? The answer on that one is kind of really depends on what you mean by well-known facts. So if Titanic was a ship that sunk by hitting an iceberg, that's something that it's reasonable to expect most people at a college level, or your audience here at the college level, to know. In that case, no, that's not a, you don't need a citation doing that. It's a well-known fact. And this kind of, I'm sorry, this gets cut off here at the bottom, but I'll read the question. Isn't plagiarism more about stealing another person's words than stealing a person's ideas? Absolutely not. The words are probably secondary to the ideas. Remember, that's the real thing. When we're working about academic discourse, we respect other people's ideas. Sometimes ideas are more important than the specific words to convey those, as you can think of in the particular case of translating work from one language to another. We lose the words, but we've kept as much as possible the sentence structure and the ideas of the original source. We still attribute it to that original source. Well, at a very basic etymological level, plagiarism equals kidnapping. It comes from the same phrase, same idea in Latin: plagiaris, kidnapper. And the question then becomes, can you plagiarize accidentally? Well, if you put a kid in your trunk, whether you knew they were there and it's somebody else's kid, you've still taken someone, accidental or intentional. The consequences may be different, but the case is exactly the same. The act has taken place. So it does matter whether something is accidental or intentional, but it may make some difference in the penalty for that. And that's something to keep in matter as we kind of convey plagiarism in a way of talking about felonies. You know, it does matter, but at the same time, in both cases, plagiarism has taken place, whether you've meant to plagiarize or not. And in that case, this is why skills are so important. The only way to avoid accidental plagiarism is to use proper skills. Well, the best skill that we have for avoiding attribution is the combination of attributive tags with in-text citations. Attributive tags here is the phrase that I'll use for this class, and I prefer to use, and up until very recently, as in maybe the last few months, was the one that was used by the Harbrace publishers. They've now switched to the term signal phrases. So if I say attributive tags or signal phrases, I'm referring to the exact same thing, but I think attributive tag makes a whole lot more sense. It's easier to remember. An attributive tag then is two parts. It attributes and it's a tag. Okay, so attribute means to ascribe or give credit. So when you're attributing something to someone else, you're giving credit. A tag is just a label that we use, a label attached for identification. So attributive tags are these labels that give credit to a proper source. And I guess you could say signal phrases are phrases that signal the original author or original source. The only problem is a lot of attributive tags aren't phrases, they're actually clauses. So this is an area where I have some confusion over that. But the main point remains the same whether you use attributive tags or signal phrases, that they mark authorship of words or ideas. And it's very important, or ideas. So if I have two people and one person says hit me and the other person says hit me, how do I know who really said hit me without properly giving attribution? Well, let's take a look at some ways to give attribution. And again, an attributive tag will have the source, who we're attributing, and it will be used also a verb. So a verb like admit or deny. Smith concedes. Thompson argues. Wilson and Thompson disagree. You know, those sort of verbs that we can use. And I'll show this in action. And you can find lists of these verbs within your textbook. Here's a case here where I have Tyler Durden, and Tyler Durden is going to observe. Tyler Durden observes that Western culture is corrupt. Tyler Durden states, it's only when we reach, I can't remember the exact quotes, right? Tyler Durden explains that it is the responsibility of a generation to actually live their lives rather than conform to expectations. These are all examples of attributive tags. Attributive tags can go anywhere in a sentence. Most conventionally, they go at the beginning of a quote or idea. An attributive tag always identifies a source. Attributive tag is used to distinguish ideas. This is essential because your name is going to go on a paper. Unless you tell me otherwise, I'm going to think that the ideas you presented in the paper are ones that you actually contributed yourself. They are your original ideas. And this is where plagiarism comes into an issue. If you do not distinguish your ideas or a source's ideas from the ideas in the writing, I will assume, rightfully so, that these are your ideas, and in fact you're actually borrowing, kidnapping another person's ideas or words. And attributive tags include an appropriate verb. Okay, attributive tags, I said they can go anywhere, beginning, middle, or end. And on your quotes, paraphrasing, summarizing, MLA test, I'll be asking you to demonstrate your ability to put attributive tags in different places in a sentence. So for example, Pollock states, quote, start living as a force for what you say should be. In this case, the attributive tag, or the signal phrase, is at the beginning of the sentence. I could do this where I put the attributive tag in the middle of the sentence to create kind of a dramatic tension. Start living, insists Pollock, as a force for what you say should be. And I can also put them at the end, although I often find that end attributive tags tend to offer confusion. Now, there's no right answer on the attributive tags as long as they're there. The reason you would shake it up and not just use it in the middle all the time is basically for stylistic variety. But if you use attributive tags at the beginning of every quote or paraphrase or summary, that's fantastic, as long as they're there. In-text citations go along with attributive tags, and we talk about these a little bit more in the MLA one, but they appear in your essay and they're a reference to a source. And so I won't go too far into those, but the attributive tags are matched together with in-text citations. So in this case, Pollock states, that's my attributive tag or signal phrase. The in-text citation is where it appears in a works cited. And in this case, from that source, Pollock states 215. Now I have a particular problem here. If I look at this example of a works cited, you'll notice that Pollock, there's actually three sources here attributive to Pollock: The Interview, Fight Club, and Stranger Than Fiction. So I'm going to need to clarify which particular source I used, and by just giving barely enough information that distinguishes it from the other three sources attributed to the same author. So in this case, I'm using from Stranger Than Fiction. Putting in the italicized, because it's a book, word stranger is enough to give me a distinction. If in this case where I don't name the author, then I would also have to put the author into the citation. So Pollock, the specific work from Polynuk because we have multiple sources, and then the page number. And then using in-text citations, again, this is covered a bit more in the MLA, that they're placed inside parentheses, and if you've used APA, that will seem familiar, that they include the minimum information necessary. So if you think, well, I'm always going to put the author's name in the citation so I'm never wrong, actually you are wrong if the author, the source's name is listed in the sentence and in the citation. So it should only be in one or the other. And it provides a page number if available. Most of the sources you'll be using for this class, because they're PDF based, will actually ask you to provide a page number. But if there is not information for page numbers or author names, in some research that you do for other classes, it actually disappears. There are no citations. And then, of course, the source listed matches the source in Works Cited. So I should be able to look right from the source in the in-text citation and immediately find it listed in the Works Cited. So quotes and paraphrases. For example, Polynuk states, again, this is a direct quote. I use an in-text citation for that. And this is a paraphrase. Then I also use an in-text citation. Remember, it's the idea that counts. It's the idea that you're borrowing. I'm less concerned with whether it's a direct quote or a paraphrase. In non-traditional sources, again, we'll have very few of these in this class, but if there is no page number, include the reference name. And if there is a reference name is included in the sentence, no in-text citation is necessary. Again, the point of in-text citations is to be minimal, to be as unnoticeable as possible, and so if you don't have information to cite, it's not included. Very few of your sources will not include at least a page number. So other non-traditional sources, if I was going to quote something from a film, there are no page numbers. I would actually say here, Tyler states the attributive tag, but it's contained within the film Fight Club. Okay, and or I guess in that case, this here a paraphrase. In the film Fight Club, Tyler states, it's only after. Well, I actually named the source in the sentence. There's no citation required on this at all. So that's an overview of plagiarism attribution. Make sure you're comfortable with this. It might be the most important skill that you get out of this class. It's definitely one that you're going to need to succeed in this course and in future courses of where academic writing research is required.